I remember the exact moment I felt my life slip out of my control. It was a Tuesday evening, the kind where the air feels heavy with routine, and I was sitting at the kitchen table, scrolling through my phone while the kids' laughter echoed from the living room. My husband, Tom, was upstairs, probably answering emails, his usual after-dinner ritual. The dishwasher hummed softly, and everything seemed so normal, so painfully predictable. But then I saw a message notification from an account I didn't recognize. Just a simple, "Hey, it's been a while." My heart did this weird stutter, like it knew something I didn't. I didn't open it. Not yet. I just stared at the screen, my thumb hovering, because some part of me already sensed this wasn't innocent. Let me back up a bit. My name's Claire, I'm 38, and I've spent the last decade building a life that looks perfect on paper. Tom and I have been married for 12 years, 2 kids, Ella, who's 9, and Max, who's 6. We live in a nice suburban house just outside Boston, with a mortgage we can mostly afford, and a backyard that is just big enough for a swing set. I work part-time as a marketing consultant, mostly from home, which gives me flexibility for school pickups and soccer practices. Tom's a project manager at a tech firm, always on calls, always stressed, but he's good at what he does. We're the couple everyone expects to have it all together: diner parties, family vacations, Instagram posts with captions about gratitude. But if I'm honest, and I'm trying to be, there's been this quiet ache inside me for years, like I'm playing a role, and I'm tired of the script. That message, though, it wasn't just a random ping. The name attached to it, James, hit me like a ghost stepping out of a fog. James was someone I hadn't thought about in years, not consciously anyway. We'd worked together at my first job out of college, a chaotic startup where we were both young, ambitious, and a little reckless. There'd been late nights at the office, too many drinks at happy hours, and a spark between us that never fully ignited. I was dating Tom at the time, and James. James was the kind of guy who didn't do commitment. He'd flirt, he'd charm, but he always kept you at arm's length. Eventually I moved on, got engaged, built this life. James faded into the background, just a memory I'd buried under layers of responsibility. So why was he messaging me now? I didn't know, but I couldn't stop thinking about it. That night, after the kids were in bed, I sat on the couch with a glass of wine, my phone burning a hole in my pocket. Tom was next to me, scrolling through his tablet, muttering about some deadline. I wanted to tell him, to say, "Hey, an old colleague reached out." Weird, right? But I didn't. Instead, I excused myself, went to the bathroom, and locked the door. My hands were shaking as I opened the message. Asterisk, "Hey, it's been a while. I was just thinking about you. Saw your name pop up on LinkedIn, and I don't know. Felt like reaching out. How's life?" It was so casual, so harmless. But it didn't feel harmless. It felt like a crack in the foundation of everything I'd built. Over the next few days, I tried to act normal. I made breakfast, drove the kids to school, answered emails. But James's message was like a splinter in my mind. I didn't respond, not at first, but I kept rereading it, looking for hidden meanings. Was he just being friendly? Was he single? Why now? I started checking his profile first on LinkedIn, then Instagram, piecing together fragments of his life. He was still in Boston, apparently, working at some fancy consulting firm, posting pictures of city views and craft cocktails. No wedding ring in the photos, no kids in sight. Just him, still lean and sharpened, with that same half smile that used to make my stomach flip. I told myself I was just curious. That's how it starts, right? You're not doing anything wrong, you're just looking. But curiosity has a way of pulling you in deeper. One night, after Tom fell asleep, I typed out a reply. Wow, it's been forever. Life's good, busy with kids and work. How about you? I hit send before I could overthink it, and the second I did, I felt this rush, like I'd just stepped off a ledge. I didn't tell anyone, not even my best friend, Sarah, who I usually tell everything. This felt too private, too dangerous to share. The next morning, there was a reply. "Kids, huh? You always seem too wild for the suburban life. I'm still in the city, dodging commitment and boring meetings. We should catch up sometime. Grab a coffee." My breath caught in my throat. Coffee. Just coffee. But the idea of seeing him, of sitting across from him after all these years, made my skin prickle. I could already imagine it, the way he'd lean in, the way his voice would drop when he teased me. I didn't respond right away, but I didn't delete the message either. I let it sit there, like a temptation I wasn't ready to face. That same day, Tom came home late, distracted as usual. We had a fight, not a big one, just the kind of petty argument couples have when they're both stretched thin. He'd forgotten to pick up Max's soccer gear, and I snapped at him, and he snapped back about how I never appreciate how hard he works. It was nothing new, but it left me raw, like every little grievance was a reminder of how far we'd drifted. That night as I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, James's message glowed in my mind. Coffee. A chance to feel something again. To be seen not as a mom or a wife, but as me. I didn't decide anything right then. At least, I told myself I didn't. But the next morning, as I dropped the kids off at school, I found myself typing a reply. Coffee sounds nice. When are you free? My finger hovered over the send button, my heart pounding so loud. I thought the other moms in the carpool line could hear it. I closed my eyes, took a breath, and pressed send. And just like that, I stepped into something I couldn't undo. What was I doing and why couldn't I stop? The coffee shop was one of those trendy places downtown. All exposed brick and overpriced lattes. The kind where you feel like you're supposed to be someone important just to sit there. I picked it because it was far from home, far from the school pickup lines and grocery stores where I might run into someone I knew. My hands were sweaty as I parked, and I checked my reflection in the rearview mirror at least 3 times, fussing with my hair, wondering if the sweater I'd chosen was too casual or not casual enough. It had been 2 weeks since I sent that message to James, and now here I was about to see him for the first time in over a decade. I told myself it was just coffee, just catching up with an old friend. But if it was so innocent, why had I lied to Tom about where I was going? I'd told him I had a client meeting, which wasn't entirely a lie, did have a call scheduled later that day. But the way I avoided his eyes when I said it, the way I rushed out the door before he could ask questions, that was new. Tom didn't suspect anything, at least I didn't think he did. He was too buried in his own world, juggling work and stress, to notice the way I'd been acting. Distant, maybe, preoccupied. The kids were at school, Sarah was covering for me in case of any emergencies, and I'd cleared my morning. I'd planned this carefully, like I was orchestrating a secret mission, and maybe I was. Inside, the shop was buzzing, people tapping away on laptops, baristas calling out orders. I scanned the room and saw him immediately, sitting by the window, one leg crossed over the other. Scrolling through his phone, James looked. God, he looked good. Not in a polished Jimbro way, but in that effortless, slightly dangerous way he always had. Dark hair just long enough to fall into his eyes, a tailored jacket over a crisp white shirt, sleeves rolled up to show a watch that probably cost more than my car. He glanced up, caught my eye, and that half-smile spread across his face, the one that used to make me forget my own name. I felt my stomach lurch like I was 25 again, sneaking glances at him across a crowded office. Claire, he said, standing as I approached, his voice warm and low, like he was savoring the word. It's so good to see you. He hugged me, quick but firm, and I caught the scent of his cologne, something woodsy, expensive. I mumbled something about it being good to see him too, my voice higher than I wanted, and sat down, clutching my purse like a lifeline. We ordered black coffee for him, a chai latte for me, and then it was just us, face to face, with years of silence stretching between us. He started easy, asking about my life, my kids, my work. I gave him the polished version. Ella's into art. Max is obsessed with soccer. I'm balancing consulting with mom duties. He listened, nodding, his eyes locked on mine in a way that made me feel like the only person in the room. But there was this undercurrent, this unspoken thing between us, like we were both circling something we weren't ready to name. He told me about his life traveling for work, living in a loft downtown, still allergic to settling down. No wife, no kids, just a string of short-term relationships and late-night deals. It's not as glamorous as it sounds, he said, but his grin suggested he wasn't complaining. The conversation shifted to the past, to those wild startup days. Remember that night? We all ended up at that dive bar, singing karaoke until 3 a.m., he asked, laughing. You were terrible, but you owned it. I laughed too, my cheeks warming because I did remember. I remembered the way he'd leaned close to me that night, his arm brushing mine, whispering that I was braver than I thought. Nothing happened back then, but the memory felt alive now, charged with a meaning it didn't have before. Or maybe it always had and I'd just buried it. I don't know how long we talked, an hour. Maybe two, but it felt like minutes. The world outside that table faded away, and for the first time in years I felt seen. Not as Claire the mom or Claire the wife, but as Claire, the woman who used to have dreams and take risks. James had a way of pulling that out of me, of making me feel like I was more than the sum of my routines. But there was something else too, something in the way he looked at me, the way his hand lingered when he passed me a napkin. It wasn't just nostalgia, it was desire, raw and unmistakable, and I wasn't sure if I was scared of it or starving for it. As we finished our drinks, he leaned back, studying me. "You're different," he said. "Not in a bad way, just quieter. Like you're carrying something heavy." Nice. His words hit harder than I expected because he was right. I was carrying something: guilt, boredom, the weight of a life I'd chosen but didn't always love. I shrugged, tried to laugh it off, but my throat felt tight. "What about you?" I asked, deflecting. "What's your secret?" He smirked, but his eyes darkened, just for a second. "Oh, you know me," he said. I'm an open book." But the way he said it, the way he glanced away, made me wonder if he was hiding something too. We stood to leave, and he walked me to my car, the autumn air crisped against my skin. I was hyper-aware of him next to me, the space between us electric. "So," he said, stopping by my driver's side door, "this was fun. We should do it again." My heart pounded because this was the moment, the line I could cross or walk away from. I should have said no, should have said I was busy, that my life didn't have room for this. But instead, I smiled, my voice barely steady. "Yeah," I said, "we should." I drove home in a daze, my mind replaying every word, every glance. I told myself I hadn't done anything wrong. It was just coffee, just a conversation. But when I got home, Tom was in the kitchen, heating up leftovers, and the sight of him, tired, familiar, oblivious, made my chest ache. "Hey," he said, glancing up. "How was your meeting?" I froze, my mouth dry, and mumbled something about it being fine. I busied myself with dishes, avoiding his eyes, because I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd already betrayed him. That night, I couldn't sleep. My phone sat on the nightstand, silent but heavy with possibility. James hadn't texted, not yet, but I knew he would. And when he did, what would I do? I thought about Tom, about the kids, about the life we'd built. I thought about James, about the way he made me feel alive again. And then, just as I was drifting off, my phone buzzed. A new message. Not from James, but from Sarah, my best friend. "Hey, you okay? You seemed off today." My stomach twisted because I hadn't even seen her today. Had she seen me? Did she know where I'd been? Or was I just paranoid, my own guilt turning shadows into threats? I woke up with a jolt, my heart racing like I'd been running in a dream. The room was dark, Tom's steady breathing beside me, but my phone was still in my hand, Sarah's message glowing on the screen. "Hey, you okay? You seemed off today." It was sent at 1:17 a.m., which wasn't like her. Sarah's the kind of friend who's in bed by 10. Her life as organized as her color-coded planner. I stared at the words, my mind spinning. Had she seen me at the coffee shop? Had someone else seen me and told her? Or was this just Sarah being Sarah, picking up on my weird energy from a distance? I typed out a quick, "I'm fine, just tired. Talk tomorrow?" and hit send, but my hands were clammy, and sleep was a lost cause. By morning, I was a mess of nerves, moving through the routine like a robot packing lunches, braiding Ella's hair, dodging Max's questions about why I looked so grumpy. Tom was already out the door for an early meeting, leaving me alone with my thoughts, which was the last thing I needed. I kept checking my phone, half expecting another message from Sarah, or worse, one from James. Nothing yet, but the silence felt like it was holding its breath, waiting to pounce. I dropped the kids at school, waved at the other moms, and drove to the park, where I was supposed to meet Sarah for our weekly walk. I hadn't wanted to go, but canceling would have raised more red flags, and I was already paranoid. Sarah was waiting by the trailhead, her blonde ponytail bouncing as she stretched. She looked like she always did, put together, glowing like she'd just stepped out of a yoga ad. But when she saw me, her smile faltered, just for a second. There you are, she said, hugging me. I was worried you'd bail. I forced a laugh, said something about being swamped with work, but my voice sounded thin, like it didn't belong to me. We started walking, the crunch of gravel under our sneakers filling the silence, and I waited for her to bring up the message, to ask what was wrong. She didn't. Instead, she talked about her husband's new promotion, her daughter's dance recital, normal stuff. Too normal. It made me itch like she was holding back. Finally, I couldn't stand it. So I said, trying to sound casual, "What was with that text last night? You freaked me out." She glanced at me, her eyes sharp, like she was measuring something. "Oh, that," she said, shrugging. "I don't know. You just seemed quiet lately, like you're hiding something." She laughed, but it didn't reach her eyes. I felt my stomach drop, because Sarah's always been good at reading people, especially me. We've been friends since college, through boyfriends and breakups, weddings and babies. She was there when I cried over Tom's proposal, when I wasn't sure I was ready to say yes. If anyone could smell a secret on me, it was her. "I'm not hiding anything," I said too quickly. "Just stressed, you know. Kids work, the usual." She nodded, but I could tell she wasn't buying it. We kept walking and she changed the subject, but the air between us felt different, heavier. I started wondering what she'd seen, or what she knew. Had she driven by the coffee shop yesterday? Did she follow me? The thought was ridiculous. Sarah wasn't some stalker, but guilt has a way of twisting your logic. By the time we looped back to the parking lot, I was exhausted, like I'd run a marathon instead of walked a mile. I got home and threw myself into work, hoping to drown out the noise in my head. I had a deadline for a client, a social media campaign that needed tweaking, but every time I tried to focus, my mind wandered back to James. That coffee shop, his smile, the way he'd called me different. I hadn't heard from him since we met, which was both a relief and a torment. Part of me wanted him to text, to keep that spark alive. Another part wanted him to disappear, to let me go back to my safe, predictable life. But safe and predictable were starting to feel like a cage, and I wasn't sure how much longer I could stay in it. That afternoon, while I was folding laundry, my phone buzzed. My heart leapt, expecting James, but it was Tom. "Dinner tonight, just us. Kids are with my parents." I stared at the message, guilt washing over me like a wave. Tom hadn't suggested a date night in months, maybe years. He was trying, I could tell, and here I was, sneaking around, lying to his face. I texted back, "Sounds perfect," and added a heart emoji, but my hands were shaking. I wanted to be excited to feel that old flutter for him, but all I could think about was James and Sarah and the secrets piling up like unpaid bills. Dinner was at a little Italian place we used to love back when we were dating. Tom looked handsome in his button-down, his hair still damp from a shower, and he smiled at me across the table. The kind of smile that used to make me weak. He talked about work, about a new project that might mean a promotion, and I nodded, sipped my wine, tried to be present. But I felt like a fraud sitting there in my nice dress, pretending everything was fine. Halfway through the meal, he reached for my hand, his thumb brushing my knuckles. "I missed this," he said, his voice soft. "Just you and me." I smiled, but my throat tightened because I missed it too, and I hated myself for it. We were waiting for dessert when my phone vibrated in my purse. I ignored it, but it buzzed again, insistent. Tom raised an eyebrow, teasing. "Work never stops, huh?" Laughed, said probably, and excused myself to the bathroom. My hands were trembling as I pulled out my phone. It's messages from James. "Hey, been thinking about you. That coffee was too short, and then free tomorrow. Let's do dinner instead." My breath caught, my pulse hammering so loud I thought the whole restaurant could hear it. Dinner, not coffee. Dinner was something else, something deliberate, something I couldn't pretend was innocent. I stood there, staring at the screen, my reflection pale in the bathroom mirror. I could say no, delete his number, go back to Tom in our life. Or I could say yes and step further into this thing I didn't fully understand. I didn't reply, not yet. I shoved the phone back in my purse and returned to the table where Tom was waiting, oblivious, cutting into his tiramisu. He looked at me, his eyes warm, and asked if I was okay. I nodded, said I was just tired, but my mind was screaming. James's message was a ticking bomb, and I didn't know if I'd defuse it or let it explode. And then there was Sarah, her cryptic text still nagging at me like a warning I couldn't ignore. What did she know? And how long could I keep lying to Tom, to her, to myself before it all came crashing down? I didn't sleep that night. Not really. I lay there, Tom's arm heavy across my waist, while James's message burned in my mind. Asterisk, let's do dinner. 2 words that felt like a dare, a door I could walk through or slam shut. By morning, I was a wreck, my eyes gritty, my thoughts tangled like headphone wires. I got the kids ready for school, burned the toast, snapped at Max for spilling juice. Tom noticed, asked if I was okay, but I brushed him off, said I just needed coffee. He kissed my forehead before heading to work, and the warmth of it made my chest ache because he was trying, and I was slipping further away. I spent the day avoiding my phone, burying myself in work, but it was useless. Every ping made my heart jump. Every quiet moment pulled me back to that decision I hadn't made. Should I text James back, say yes to dinner, say no, and end it? Or just ignore him, let the whole thing fade like a bad dream?
Oh.
But it wasn't fading. It was growing, spreading like a stain I couldn't scrub out. By afternoon, I was pacing the kitchen, the kids still at school, the house too quiet. I poured a glass of wine too early, I knew, but I needed something to steady my hands. Then I sat at the table, opened my phone, and stared at his message. Asterisk, free tomorrow? Let's do dinner instead? Asterisk. I typed out a reply. Asterisk, dinner sounds nice. Deleted it. Typed again. Asterisk, I don't think I can. Deleted that too. My thumb hovered over the screen, my pulse loud in my ears. Finally, I wrote, asterisk, hey, sorry, been crazy busy. Dinner might be tough, but maybe another coffee soon? It was a compromise, a way to keep the door cracked open without stepping through. I hit send before I could change my mind, then tossed the phone on the couch like it was radioactive. I told myself I'd done the right thing, played it safe. But safe didn't feel like enough anymore. James texted back within minutes. Asterisk, coffee's a start. Let me know when you're free. No pressure. No pressure. Right. But everything about him felt like pressure, like a current pulling me under. I didn't respond, just locked my phone and tried to focus on the kids' after-school chaos, homework, snacks, Ella's endless questions about her science project. But my mind kept drifting, replaying that coffee shop, his voice, the way he'd looked at me like I was someone new. And then there was Tom, who'd been so sweet last night, so present. The contrast made me dizzy, like I was 2 people living in the same skin. That evening Sarah called. I almost didn't answer, still rattled by her text. But ignoring her would have been worse. Hey stranger, she said, her voice bright but edged with something I couldn't place. You've been MIA, what's up? I laughed. Said I was just swamped, but my throat felt tight. He talked about nothing, her daughter's new obsession with TikTok. My client's impossible demands, but I could feel her probing, waiting for me to slip. Then out of nowhere she said, So, I was downtown yesterday, near that new coffee shop on Tremont. Thought I saw you there. My stomach lurched, but I kept my voice steady. Oh, I said I wasn't downtown yesterday. Must have been someone else. She paused, just long enough to make my skin crawl. Yeah, she said, probably. But the way she said it, I knew she didn't believe me. I hung up feeling like I'd dodged a bullet, but the relief didn't last. Sarah's words stuck with me, a splinter I couldn't dig out. Had she really seen me? Was she testing me? Or was I just paranoid, my guilt turning every shadow into a threat? I couldn't tell anymore. That night, Tom came home late, exhausted but in a good mood, talking about a deal he'd closed. He pulled me into a hug, his hands warm on my back, and for a moment, I wanted to confess everything, James, the coffee, the lies, but I didn't. I just hugged him back, my face buried in his shoulder, and pretended I was still the wife he thought I was. The next day was Friday, and I had a rare morning to myself. No client calls, no school drop-offs. I decided to run errands, clear my head. I was at the grocery store, tossing cereal into the cart, when my phone buzzed. Another message from James? Asterisk, found a spot you'd love. Italian, cozy, great wine list. Say the word, and I'll book it. My breath caught, because this wasn't coffee anymore. This was a date, a real one, and he wasn't backing off. I stood there, frozen in the cereal aisle, as a mom with a toddler pushed past me. I should have deleted the message, blocked his number, But instead, I typed asterisk. Sounds tempting. Let me check my schedule. I didn't send it. Not yet. I slipped the phone into my pocket and kept shopping. But my hands were shaking, and I couldn't focus on the list. When I got home, I unpacked the groceries, my mind still on that unsent message. I was about to pull out my phone when the doorbell rang. I opened it, expecting a delivery. But it was Sarah, standing on my porch with a bottle of wine and a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Surprise," she said, stepping inside before I could react. "I figured we needed a girls' night." "Tom's working late, right?" I nodded, my mouth dry, because Tom wasn't working late. He'd be home in an hour, and Sarah knew that. She'd been to our house 100 times, knew our schedules better than I did. So why was she here, unannounced, with that look in her eyes? We sat in the living room, the wine untouched, and she started talking about her job, her husband, random gossip. But I could feel her watching me, waiting for something. Then, casually, she said, "You know, I was thinking about that coffee shop again. I swear it was you I saw, Claire, with some guy." My heart stopped, but I laughed, said she was imagining things. "I wasn't downtown," I said again, my voice too high. She tilted her head, her smile sharp. "Okay," she said, "my mistake." But the air in the room felt thick, like a storm was coming. Tom got home just as Sarah was leaving, and she hugged him, all smiles like nothing was wrong. But as she walked to her car, she glanced back at me. And I swear I saw something in her eyes. Disappointment, maybe, or warning. I closed the door, my hands trembling, and Tom asked what was up with her. I shrugged, said she was just being Sarah, but my mind was screaming. Did she know about James? Was she baiting me? And that message from James, still sitting in my drafts, waiting for me to decide? Italian, cozy, great wine list? A night that could change everything. But as I stood there, Tom's voice fading into the background, another thought hit me, cold and sharp. What if Sarah wasn't the only one watching? What if someone else had seen me? Someone who wouldn't stay quiet, couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. Had Sarah's visit left me rattled, her words looping in my head like a song I couldn't turn off. Asterisk, I swear it was you I saw, Claire, with some guy. She'd said it so casually, but it felt like a blade, sharp and precise. I spent the next morning cleaning the house, scrubbing counters I'd already cleaned, trying to outrun my own thoughts. Tom was at work, the kids at school, and the silence was deafening. My phone sat on the kitchen island, James's unsent reply still in my drafts, taunting me. Asterisk sounds tempting. Let me check my schedule. I hadn't sent it, but I hadn't deleted it either. It was like holding a lit match, waiting to see if I'd drop it. Underscore by noon, I was unraveling. I needed to talk to someone to make sense of the mess in my head, but Sarah was out of the question. She was too close, too perceptive, and now maybe too suspicious. I thought about calling my sister, but she'd lecture me, tell me to focus on my family, and I wasn't ready for that, so I did something impulsive. I texted James. Not the draft, not about dinner, but something safer. Asterisk, hey, been a crazy week. How's your day going? It was neutral, friendly, a way to keep the connection without committing to anything. At least that's what I told myself. The second I hit send, my stomach twisted, a mix of thrill and dread. Replied almost instantly. Asterisk crazy here too. Just got out of a meeting that felt like a hostage situation. You okay? Asterisk, that last part caught me off guard, like he could sense my chaos through the screen. I stared at the message, my fingers hovering. I wanted to tell him everything Sarah's visit, the lies, the guilt eating me alive, but I couldn't. Instead, I typed asterisk, just navigating mom life. You know, glamorous as ever. I added a laughing emoji, trying to keep it light, but my hands were shaking. His next message came fast. Asterisk, you're more than mom life, Claire. Don't forget that. My breath hitched, because he was doing it again, seeing me, the me I'd buried under years of routine. It was intoxicating, and it was dangerous. I was still staring at my phone when the doorbell rang, sharp and jarring. I flinched, half expecting Sarah again, but when I opened the door, it was a delivery guy holding a small package. I signed for it, confused. It wasn't anything I'd ordered. The box was plain. No return address, just my name scrawled in black marker. I took it inside, my curiosity outweighing my unease, and cut it open. Inside was a single red scarf, silk, expensive looking, with a note tucked beneath it. Asterisk thought this would look good on you. No signature, no hint of who sent it. My first thought was James, but that didn't make sense. He didn't know my address. Did he? My mind raced, trying to piece it together. Tom, a client, a mistake. But the note felt personal, deliberate, and it made my skin prickle. I shoved the scarf back in the box and hid it in the hall closet, my heart pounding. I didn't tell Tom when he got home, didn't mention it to anyone. Felt like a secret I wasn't supposed to have. Like the messages with James, like the coffee shop lie. That evening, we had a family movie night. The kids sprawled on the couch, Tom's arm around me. It should have felt comforting, but I was on edge, jumping every time my phone buzzed. Most were nothing work emails. A group chat with the soccer moms, but one was from Sarah. Asterisk lunch tomorrow, just you and me. Bye. My stomach sank. Another test. Another chance to slip up. I texted back, sure sounds great, but I felt like I was walking into a trap. The next day, I met Sarah at a cafe near her office, a bustling spot with too many people for a real conversation. Or so I hoped. She was already there, sipping an iced coffee, her smile warm but her eyes searching. We hugged and I braced myself, waiting for her to bring up the coffee shop again. She didn't. Instead, she talked about her husband's stress, her daughter's school drama, and I nodded, picking at my salad, trying to act normal. But halfway through, she leaned in, her voice low. Claire, she said, you know you can tell me anything, right? Like if something's going on? My fork froze midair, my pulse hammering. What do you mean? I asked, my voice too high. She shrugged, but her gaze was steady, just saying, you've been different, distracted. I'm worried about you. I laughed it off, said it was just the usual chaos, but my mind was screaming. She knew something, or she suspected it. I changed the subject, asked about her vacation plans, and she let it drop, but the tension lingered like a fog we couldn't shake. As we left, she hugged me longer than usual and whispered, I'm here, okay, whatever it is. I nodded, my throat tight, but all I could think was how close I was to losing everything: her trust, Tom's love, my own sense of who I was. When I got home, I checked my phone. Another message from James. Asterisk still thinking about that dinner. Let me know when you're ready. My heart leaped, then sank. I wanted to say yes, to feel that rush again, but the scarf in the closet, Sarah's words, the weight of my lies, they were all closing in. I didn't reply, but I didn't delete the message either. I just sat there, staring at the screen until Ella burst in, asking for help with her homework. I shoved the phone away, grateful for the distraction, but it didn't last. That night, after the kids were in bed, Tom and I were cleaning the kitchen when he mentioned something odd. Hey, he said, did you get a package today? I saw a delivery slip in the trash. My blood ran cold, but I kept my face neutral. Oh yeah, I said, just some work stuff. He nodded, didn't push, but his eyes lingered on me like he was seeing something he hadn't before. I turned away, my hands busy with dishes, but my mind was racing. Had he seen the scarf? Did he know it wasn't work? And then, as I was wiping down the counter, my phone lit up on the table. A new message, not from James or Sarah, but an unknown number. You looked beautiful today. My breath stopped because I hadn't told anyone what I was wearing, not even Tom, who was watching me, and how much did they know about the secrets I was trying so hard to keep? I stood frozen in the kitchen, the dishcloth dripping in my hand, staring at the message from the unknown number. Asterisk, you look beautiful today. It was like the world tilted, everything I thought I knew slipping out of place. Tom was still there, wiping down the table, humming some tune I didn't recognize, oblivious to the panic clawing at my chest. I locked my phone, shoved it in my pocket, and forced myself to keep moving, to act like nothing was wrong. But my mind was a storm. Who sent that? Was it James playing some game? Sarah testing me again? Or someone else entirely? Someone who'd been watching me close enough to know what I was wearing? The thought made my skin crawl. I barely slept, my dreams jagged and restless, filled with faceless figures and locked doors. By morning, I was hollow-eyed, dragging myself through the routine packing lunches, kissing the kids goodbye, smiling at Tom like I wasn't falling apart. He was distracted, already on his phone, muttering about a client meeting, and I was grateful for it. I didn't want him looking too closely, not when I felt like my secrets were written all over my face. After he left, I pulled out the scarf from the closet, the one from the mystery package, and ran my fingers over the silk. It was beautiful, deep red, the kind of thing I'd never buy for myself. But it felt wrong now, tainted, like a warning I didn't understand. I needed answers, but I didn't know where to start. I couldn't confront Sarah without risking everything. Her suspicion was already too sharp. And if she didn't know about James, pushing her might make her dig. James was another question mark. His messages were flirty, persistent, but this didn't feel like him. He was bold, not cryptic. Still, I texted him, keeping it vague. Asterisk, hey, did you send me anything recently? Like a gift? My hands shook as I hit send, and I waited, staring at the screen like it might bite me. His reply came fast. Asterisk, a gift? Nope, but now I'm intrigued. What did you get? He added a winking emoji, and I felt a mix of relief and dread. If it wasn't him, then who? I spent the day in a fog, jumping at every noise of the mail truck, the neighbor's dog, my own phone. Work was impossible. I stared at my laptop, the cursor blinking like an accusation. By afternoon, I was desperate for a distraction, so I went to pick up the kids early, hoping their chaos would ground me. But as I waited in the school parking lot, another message came. Same unknown number. Asterisk red looks good on you? My breath stopped. Hadn't worn the scarf. Hadn't even taken it out of the closet today. But I was wearing a red sweater, one I'd pulled on without thinking. Whoever this was, they weren't guessing. They were watching close enough to see me now. I scanned the parking lot, my heart hammering. Their parents were there, chatting, checking their phones, but no one stood out. A dad in a baseball cap, a mom pushing a stroller, a teacher herding kids to the bus. Everyone looked normal. Too normal. I gripped the steering wheel, my knuckles white, and when Ella and Max climbed into the car, I forced a smile, asked about their day, but my voice sounded wrong, too tight. They didn't notice, too busy arguing over who got the front seat, but I kept glancing in the rearview mirror, half expecting to see someone following us. When we got home, I locked the doors, checked the windows, told myself I was being paranoid. But the messages, the scarf, Sarah's questions, they were piling up, each one a crack in the life I'd built. I thought about telling Tom, coming clean about everything James, the coffee, the lies. Maybe he'd understand. Maybe we could fix this. But the thought of his face, the hurt in his eyes, stopped me cold. And what if he didn't believe me about the messages? What if he thought I was making it up, or worse, that I'd invited this somehow? That evening, Tom got home early, surprising me with takeout from our favorite Thai place. He was in a good mood, joking with the kids, teasing me about my terrible chopstick skills. For a moment, it felt like old times, like we were us again, before the secrets and the doubts. But my phone was in my pocket, heavy with those messages, and every laugh felt like a lie. After dinner, while Tom was helping Max with his math homework, I slipped upstairs and called Sarah. I couldn't keep dodging her, not when she might know something. She answered on the second ring, her voice warm but cautious. Claire, hey, what's up? I took a breath, tried to sound casual. I need to ask you something, I said. Those texts you sent about seeing me downtown? Were you serious, or just messing with me? There was a pause, too long, and when she spoke, her tone was careful. I thought I saw you, she said, but maybe I was wrong. You sound freaked out. I laughed, but it came out shaky. No, just curious, I said. Things have been weird lately. She didn't push, but I could feel her holding back, like she was waiting for me to crack. I hung up, more confused than ever. Sarah wasn't lying, I could tell, but she wasn't telling me everything either. And those messages read looks good on you kept circling in my head, tying knots I couldn't untangle. I was about to go downstairs when my phone buzzed again. Another unknown number, different from the last. Asterisk, you can't run from what you want. My stomach dropped and I sank onto the bed, my legs weak. This wasn't random anymore. Someone knew something about James, about me, about the desires I hadn't even admitted to myself. But who and what did they want from me? As I sat there, the house quiet, except for the faint sound of Tom and the kids laughing downstairs. I heard a noise outside, a soft thud, like something hitting the porch. I froze, my heart in my throat, and crept to the window. The street was dark, the neighbors' lights glowing, but our front yard was empty. Or was it? In the shadows by the mailbox. I thought I saw movement, a shape that vanished when I blinked. I told myself it was nothing, just my imagination, but my hands were trembling as I pulled the curtains shut. Downstairs, Tom called my name, asking if I was coming to watch the movie. I called back that I'd be right there, but I didn't move. I stood there, clutching my phone, wondering how many secrets I could carry before they buried me. What would happen when the person behind those messages decided to step out of the shadows? The thud outside lingered in my mind like a bruise, tender and impossible to ignore. I didn't tell Tom about it. Didn't he mention the shadow by the mailbox or the message that came just before Asterisk? Oh, you can run from what you want. I couldn't. He was downstairs laughing with the kids, setting up popcorn for movie night. I was up here, unraveling, holding secrets that felt like they were choking me. I splashed water on my face, took a deep breath, and went back to join them, forcing a smile as I curled up on the couch. But my eyes kept darting to the window, half expecting to see a face pressed against the glass. The next morning I was up before dawn, checking the porch for any sign of what I'd heard. Nothing, no footprints, no package, just a stray leaf caught in the doormat. I told myself it was a raccoon, a branch, anything but what my gut was screaming. I needed to get a grip, to stop letting fear and guilt twist every sound into a threat. But those messages weren't my imagination, and neither was the scarf still hidden in the closet. Someone was out there, watching, playing a game I didn't understand. And I was starting to think it wasn't just about James. I dropped the kids at school, my hands tight on the steering wheel, scanning every car in the lot for anything suspicious. No one stood out, but the feeling of being watched clung to me like damp clothes. When I got home, I did something I hadn't done in years. I went through Tom's phone. He'd left it on the counter, charging, and while I told myself I was just ruling things out, my heart pounded like I was committing a crime. I swiped through his messages, his emails, looking for anything, a cryptic text. A name I didn't know, a hint that he was behind the scarf, or the messages. Nothing, just work stuff. A group chat with his buddies, a reminder to call his mom. I put the phone back, my face hot with shame, but the doubt lingered. What if Tom knew something? What if he was testing me? I was still shaking when my phone buzzed. James, morning, you never answered about that gift, spilled the details. His tone was light, teasing, but it didn't calm me. If anything, it made me angry at him for pulling me into this, angry at myself for letting him. I didn't reply, not yet. Instead, I went online, searching for ways to trace unknown numbers. Everything I found was useless paywalls, sketchy apps, or advice to call the police, which wasn't an option. How could I explain this without exposing everything? Hey, officer, someone's sending me creepy texts, but also I'm sneaking around with an old flame, so maybe it's related. You're right. By afternoon, I was desperate for normalcy, so I met Sarah for coffee, even though every instinct told me to avoid her. She'd texted again, insisting we catch up, and I couldn't keep dodging without making her more suspicious. We met at a crowded diner, the kind of place where no one notices you. And she was all smiles, chatting about her daughter's science fair project. But I could feel her watching me, her eyes sharp behind the small talk. I kept waiting for her to bring up the coffee shop, to push like she had before, but she didn't. Instead, she asked about Tom, about the kids, about work-normal questions that felt like traps. You guys doing okay? She asked, stirring her coffee. You and Tom, you seem tense. I froze, my fork halfway to my mouth. We're fine, I said too quickly. Just busy, you know. She nodded, but her smile was tight, like she was holding something back. I changed the subject, asked about her husband, but my mind was racing. Did she know about James? Had she told Tom? The thought made my stomach churn, because Sarah and Tom were close to she'd been at our wedding, hosted our baby showers. If she suspected something, would she go to him? Or was she just worried, like she said, trying to be a friend? We parted with a hug, and I promised to call her soon, but as I walked to my car, I felt her eyes on my back. I checked my phone, nothing new from the unknown number, but James had texted again. Asterisk, Okay, you're killing me with the suspense. What was the gift? And when are we grabbing that coffee? I stared at the message, my thumb hovering, and for a moment wanted to tell him everything. The scarf, the messages, the fear. But I didn't. I typed, asterisk, just a scarf. Probably a mistake. Coffee, soon, promise, asterisk, and hit send, hating myself for keeping the door open. That evening, Tom suggested we go to a neighborhood barbecue, a last-minute thing at the Petersons' house down the street. I didn't want to go, crowds felt suffocating. I was terrified of running into Sarah or someone else who might see through me. But Tom insisted, said it'd be good for us to get out. So I put on a dress, forced a smile, and we went, the kids running ahead with their friends. The backyard was packed neighbors, laughing, music playing, the smell of grilled burgers in the air. I stuck close to Tom, sipping a beer, trying to blend in, but my eyes kept scanning the crowd, looking for anything off. Then I saw him. Not James, not some stranger, but Mark, a guy from Tom's office who'd always given me a weird vibe. He was standing by the fire pit, talking to a group, but his eyes were on me, steady and unblinking. I looked away, my skin prickling, but when I glanced back, he was still watching, a small smile on his lips. I'd never liked Marquis, was too slick, too charming, the kind of guy who made inappropriate jokes and called it banter. Tom said he was harmless, just a flirt, but I wasn't so sure. Had he sent the scarf? The messages? I didn't know, but the way he was looking at me felt like he knew something I didn't. I excused myself, saying I needed the bathroom, and slipped inside the house, my heart racing. I locked myself in the guest room, pulled out my phone, and checked the messages again. Nothing new, but the old ones were still there, taunting me. Asterisk, you look beautiful today. Red looks good on you. Can't run from what you want. Asterisk, I was about to put the phone away when it buzzed. A new message from a different unknown number. Asterisk, having fun at the party? My breath stopped, my hands trembling so badly I nearly dropped the phone. I looked out the window, at the crowd laughing and drinking, at Mark still by the fire pit, his eyes now on his phone. Was it him, or was I losing it, seeing threats where there were none? I heard Tom's voice outside, calling my name, and I shoved the phone in my purse, my mind screaming. Someone was out there, close enough to know I was at this party, close enough to see me unraveling. But who and how much longer could I keep this from Tom, from Sarah, from everyone before the truth came for me? I stood in the Petersons' guest room, my back pressed against the door, the party's muffled laughter seeping through the walls. My phone was still in my hand, the new message glowing like a warning. Asterisk, having fun at the party. My breath was shallow, my pulse a drumbeat in my ears. Whoever sent this wasn't just watching. They were here, were close enough to know exactly where I was. I forced myself to look out the window again, scanning the backyard. Mark was still by the fire pit, his phone in hand, but he wasn't typing now. He was laughing, clinking his beer with someone, like he didn't have a care in the world. Was it him, or was I jumping at shadows, letting my guilt paint everyone as a threat? I shoved the phone in my purse and splashed water on my face in the bathroom, trying to pull myself together. Tom was out there, probably wondering where I'd gone, and I couldn't let him see me like this wild-eyed, falling apart. I smoothed my dress, forced a smile in the mirror, and went back to the party, my heart still racing. Tom was near the grill, talking to a neighbor, and when he saw me, he waved me over, his smile warm. "You okay?" he asked, his hand brushing my arm. "You were gone a while." I nodded, said the bathroom line was long, but my voice sounded hollow, like it belonged to someone else. The rest of the night was a blur. I stuck close to Tom, nodding at conversations, laughing when I was supposed to. But my eyes kept drifting to Mark. He didn't look at me again, not directly, but I felt his presence like a weight. A question I couldn't answer. By the time we got home, the kids half asleep in the back seat, I was exhausted, my nerves frayed to the breaking point. Tom carried Max to bed, and I tucked Ella in, kissing her forehead, trying to anchor myself in the normalcy of it all. But when I climbed into bed, the messages were still there, burned into my mind, and sleep felt like a luxury I didn't deserve. The next morning, I woke to a text from James, sent just after midnight. Asterisk, hope you had a good night. Thinking about you. Asterisk, my stomach twisted, a mix of longing and frustration. He had no idea what I was going through, no idea about the messages, or the fear that was eating me alive. Part of me wanted to tell him to spill everything and see if he'd run or stay. But I didn't. I texted back, * night was okay. Busy day ahead. Talk soon, * it was vague. A way to keep him close without giving in, but every word felt like a step deeper into the mess I'd made. I decided to take control, or at least try. I couldn't keep living like this, jumping at every buzz of my phone, suspecting everyone around me. So I did something reckless. I replied to the last unknown number. * Who are you? What do you want? My hands shook as I hit send, and I waited, barely breathing, for a response. Nothing came, not right away, but the act of sending it made me feel briefly powerful, like I was fighting back. Then I went through my contacts, looking for anyone who might have a reason to mess with me. Mark's name wasn't in my phone, but I knew he had access to Tom's work contacts. Could he have gotten my number that way? Or was it someone closer, someone I'd overlooked? I was still stewing when Sarah showed up unannounced, her SUV pulling into the driveway, just as I was unloading groceries. She hopped out, all smiles, holding a bakery box. "Donuts," she said, thrusting it at me. "Peace offering for being weird lately." I blinked, caught off guard, and invited her in. My mind racing. Was this another test, or was she genuinely trying to fix things? We sat at the kitchen table, the kids at a friend's house, and she talked about her week, her voice light, but her eyes searching, like she was waiting for me to crack. I kept my answers short, my hands wrapped around a coffee mug, but the tension was suffocating. Finally, she leaned forward, her voice low. "Claire, I'm going to be straight with you," she said. "I know something's going on. You don't have to tell me, but I'm not stupid. I saw you that day at the coffee shop. You weren't alone." My heart stopped, my mouth dry. I opened my mouth to deny it, but she held up a hand. "I'm not judging," she said. I care about you, Tom. I don't want you to get hurt." Her words hit like a punch because she wasn't angry. She was worried, and that was worse. I laughed, shaky, said it was just a work thing, an old colleague, nothing more. My face was burning, and I knew she didn't believe me. She didn't push, just nodded and changed the subject. But the air felt heavy, like we'd crossed a line we couldn't uncross. After she left, I sat there, staring at the donuts, my mind a tangle of fear and guilt. Sarah knew about James, or at least suspected. How long before she told Tom, or had she already? And those messages, still no reply from the unknown number. But the silence was worse, like a predator waiting to strike. I thought about the scarf, the thud on the porch, Mark's stare at the party. Pieces of a puzzle I couldn't solve, but they all pointed to one truth. My secrets were catching up with me. That afternoon, I took the kids to soccer practice, hoping the noise and chaos would drown out my thoughts. But as I sat in the bleachers cheering for Max, my phone buzzed. Another unknown number, different again. "You're playing a dangerous game, Claire." My breath caught, my eyes scanning the field, the other parents, the coaches. No one was looking at me, but I felt exposed, like a spotlight was on me. I gripped my phone, my hands trembling, and typed, "Leave me alone." I hit send, my heart pounding, but deep down, I knew it wouldn't stop them. Whoever this was, they weren't done. As practice ended, Tom called, saying he'd be late another work dinner. I said it was fine, but my voice was tight, and he paused, asked if I was sure. I said yes, hung up, and sat in the car. The kids buckled in, their chatter fading into the background. I was alone in this, trapped by my own choices, and the weight of it was crushing. But then I saw something that made my blood run cold, a car parked across the lot, one I'd seen before, near the school, near the park. Dark sedan, tinted windows, too far to see the driver. It pulled away as I stared, slow and deliberate, like it wanted me to notice. Was it them? The one sending the messages? Or was I losing my mind, seeing threats in every corner? I drove home, my hands shaking, the kids oblivious in the back. But one question burned louder than the rest. How much did this person know, and what were they going to do with it? I couldn't stop seeing that car in my mind's a dark sedan, its tinted windows like eyes that saw too much. It followed me home, not literally, but in the way thoughts do, looping and tightening until I could barely breathe. I got the kids fed, bathed, and into bed, moving like a ghost through the routine, my hands unsteady as I tucked them in. Tom was still at his work dinner, the house too quiet, and every creak of the floorboards made me jump. I checked the locks twice, pulled the curtains tight, but it didn't help. The messages, the scarf, the car they were closing in, and I was running out of places to hide. I sat on the couch, my phone in my lap, staring at the last text from the unknown number. "You're playing a dangerous game, Claire." I'd sent "leave me alone," but there'd been no reply, just that suffocating silence. I wanted to block the number, all of them, but something stopped me maybe, or the need to know who was behind this. I thought about James, about Sarah's confession that she'd seen me at the coffee shop. She'd promised not to tell Tom, but could I trust her? And Mark, with his creepy stare at the barbecue, was he involved, or was I just grasping at straws, desperate for someone to blame? I was about to pour a glass of wine when my phone buzzed. Not a text, but a call, from a number I didn't recognize. My heart leaped, and I let it ring, watching the screen like it might explode. It stopped, then started again, insistent. I answered, my voice barely a whisper. "Hello?" There was a pause, then a low laugh, distorted like it was coming through a filter. "You're not as careful as you think, Claire," the voice said, male, but impossible to place. I froze, my breath caught in my throat. "Who is this?" I demanded, louder than I meant. Another laugh, then the line went dead. I sat there, trembling, the phone still pressed to my ear, until the silence became unbearable. I didn't call the police. I couldn't. Not without explaining everything, James. The lies, the coffee shop. Instead, I texted James, my fingers clumsy. Asterisk, I need to talk. Something's going on. Can we meet? It was reckless. But I was desperate. And he was the only one who might understand. The only one tied to this mess. He replied instantly. Asterisk, name the place. I'm there. Asterisk, I suggested a bar downtown, far from home tomorrow night. Not coffee, not dinner, but something in between. A place where I could spill everything and maybe find a way out. The next day was a blur. I dropped the kids at school, worked from home, but every task felt like wading through mud. Tom noticed my mood, asked if I was okay, and I lied. Said I had a headache. He kissed my cheek, promised to be home early, and I felt like the worst person alive. By evening, I was a bundle of nerves getting ready for the bar. I told Tom I was meeting Sarah for drinks, a lie that came to isolate now. He didn't question it, just nodded, told me to have fun. I hated how trusting he was, how it made my betrayal sharper. The bar was dimly lit, all dark wood and low music, the kind of place where secrets feel safe. James was already there, at a corner booth, nursing a whiskey. He stood when he saw me, his smile warm but cautious, like he could sense the storm I was carrying. You look like you've seen a ghost, he said, sliding a glass of wine toward me. I sat, my hands clasped tight, and took a sip, trying to steady myself. I didn't know where to start, so I just told him about the messages, the scarf, the car, the call. I left out Sarah's suspicions, Tom's trust, but I gave him enough, my voice low and rushed, like I was confessing to a priest. He listened, his eyes narrowing, his jaw tight. That's not okay, he said when I finished. Someone's messing with you, Claire. You need to figure out who. I nodded, but my throat was tight, because saying it out loud made it real. I don't know what to do, I admitted, my voice breaking. I'm scared, James. He reached across the table, his hand covering mine, warm and steady. We'll figure it out, he said. You're not alone in this. His touch sent a jolt through me. Not just comfort, but something else, something I'd been trying to ignore. I pulled my hand back too fast, and he looked at me, his eyes searching. What's really going on, Claire? He asked. This isn't just about some creep. It's about us, isn't it? I froze, my heart pounding. He was right, and I hated it. The messages, the fear they were tied to him, to the choice I hadn't fully made. I'm married, I said, my voice barely audible. I have kids. I can't. I don't know what I'm doing. He leaned back, his expression unreadable. I'm not asking you to leave him, he said. But you're not happy, Claire. I see it. I've always seen it. His words hit like a truth I'd been dodging, and for a moment I wanted to give in, to let him pull me across that line. But then my phone buzzed, shattering the moment. Another unknown number. Shouldn't be here. My blood ran cold, and I showed it to James, my hands shaking. He cursed, grabbed his phone, and started typing, saying he'd look into it, call some contacts. But I was barely listening, my eyes scanning the bar, the faces in the shadows. We left soon after, James walking me to my car, his hand on my elbow like he was afraid I'd bolt. "Be careful," he said, his voice low, "and call me, anytime." I nodded, got in, and drove home, my mind a mess of fear and longing. When I pulled into the driveway, Tom's car was there, earlier than I'd expected. I walked inside, bracing myself, and found him in the living room, his face pale, his phone in his hand. "Where were you?" he asked, his voice quiet but sharp. I froze, the lie about Sarah on my tongue, but his eyes stopped me. "I called Sarah," he said. "She didn't know about any drinks." My heart dropped, and I stood there, speechless, as the room seemed to close in. Had he seen the messages? Did he know about James? Or was this about something else entirely? Something I hadn't even seen coming? I stood in the living room, Tom's words hanging between us like a guillotine. "I called Sarah. She didn't know about any drinks." My mouth opened, but nothing came out, my carefully rehearsed lie crumbling under his gaze. He wasn't yelling, wasn't even angry, not yet, but his eyes were hard, searching like he was seeing me for the first time. I felt naked, my secrets laid bare, and all I could think was how I'd let it get this far. The messages, James, the scarfing on of it, mattered in this moment, not when Tom was standing there waiting for an answer I didn't have. I was just out," I stammered, my voice thin, unconvincing. "Needed some air, you know. Work's been crazy." It was a terrible lie, and I knew it the second it left my lips. Tom's jaw tightened, and he set his phone down on the coffee table, deliberate, like he was trying to keep his hands busy. "Claire," he said, his voice low, "don't. Just tell me where you were." My heart was pounding so loud I thought it might crack my ribs. I could tell him about James, the bar, the fear, but what then? Would he forgive me? Could I even ask him to? Or I could double down, keep lying, hope he'd let it go. But the way he was looking at me, I knew he wouldn't. "I was with a friend," I said finally, my voice barely above a whisper. "Not Sarah, just someone from work." We grabbed a drink. It wasn't a total lie, but it wasn't the truth either, and Tom knew it. He nodded, slow, like he was processing something heavy. "Okay," he said, but his tone was cold, distant. He didn't ask who, didn't push, and that scared me more than if he'd shouted. He just picked up his phone and went upstairs, leaving me alone in the dim living room, the silence louder than any argument. I didn't sleep. I lay beside him, his back to me, the space between us a chasm. My mind replayed everything: the bar, James's hand on mine, the message, "You shouldn't be here." Whoever was watching me had been there, close enough to know I was with James. And now Tom was slipping away, his trust eroding, and I didn't know how to stop it. By morning, he was up early, making coffee, acting normal for the kids, but he barely looked at me. I dropped Ella and Max at school, my hands shaky, and when I got home, I checked my phone. No new messages from the unknown numbers, but James had texted, "You okay? Last night was intense. Let me know what's next." I stared at the words, torn between relief and dread. He was still there, still pulling me in, but at what cost? I needed to end this one way or another. I couldn't keep juggling lies, dodging Tom's questions, living in fear of the next text, so I called James, my hands sweating as the phone rang. He answered on the first ring, his voice warm, concerned. "Claire, hey, you good?" I took a breath, steadied myself. "We need to talk," I said, in person. Today, he didn't hesitate, suggested a park near his office. Neutral ground. I agreed, hung up, and told myself this was a tea. Tell him we were done, that I couldn't do this anymore. But even as I planned it, a part of me wavered, craving the way he made me feel, the escape he offered. The park was quiet, just a few joggers and dog walkers, the autumn leaves crunching underfoot. James was waiting on a bench, his coat open, his face lighting up when he saw me. I sat beside him, keeping distance, my hands clasped in my lap. "You look like you're carrying the world," he said, his voice soft. "What's going on?" I took a deep breath and told him everything. The messages, the call, Sarah's suspicions, Tom's confrontation. I told him about the fear, the guilt, the way I was losing myself. "I'm married, James," I said, my voice breaking. "I can't keep doing this. It's tearing me apart." He listened, his eyes steady, and when I finished, he leaned forward, his elbows on his knees. "I'm not trying to ruin your life, Claire," he said. I see you, the real you, and I can't pretend I don't. If you want to walk away, I'll respect that. But don't do it because you're scared. Do it because it's what you want." His words hit hard, because he was right. I was scared of the messages of Tom, of myself. But I was also scared of losing what James gave me, that spark I'd forgotten I could feel. "I don't know what I want," I admitted, my voice raw. He reached for my hand, but I pulled back, standing up. "I need time," I said. "Please, just give me space." He nodded, stood, and for a moment I thought he'd argue, pull me back in. But he just said, "Take all the time you need, not going anywhere." I walked away, my chest tight, feeling like I'd won a battle but was losing the war. When I got to my car, my phone buzzed. I braced myself, expecting another unknown number, but it was Sarah. "We need to talk. Now meet me at my place." My stomach sank. Had she told Tom? Was she done covering for me? I texted back, on my way, my hands trembling, knowing this could be the moment everything unraveled. Sarah's house was 10 minutes away, but the drive felt like hours. When I pulled up, she was waiting on the porch, her arms crossed, her face unreadable. I got out, my legs shaky, and followed her inside. She didn't offer coffee, didn't smile, just sat at her kitchen table and looked at me. "I saw you again," she said, her voice steady. "Yesterday at that bar downtown." With him, my heart stopped, because I hadn't seen her, hadn't even thought to look. I opened my mouth to lie, but she cut me off. "Don't, Claire. I know it's not work. I know who he is." I froze, my mind racing. How did she know James? Had she been digging? Or was this about something else, something I'd missed? "I'm not going to tell Tom," she said, her voice softer now. "But you need to figure this out, Claire. You're not this person. You're not a liar." Her words stung because she was right. I wasn't, or at least I hadn't been. I nodded, tears burning my eyes, and promised I'd fix it, but I didn't know how. She hugged me as I left, but it felt like a goodbye, like she was letting go of who she thought I was. I drove home, my head pounding, and when I walked in, Tom was there, home early, his laptop open on the counter. He looked at me, his eyes tired, and said, "We need to talk." My breath caught, because this was at the moment I'd been dreading. But before I could respond, my phone buzzed in my pocket, another unknown number. I didn't look, didn't need to. I knew it was them, watching, waiting. And as Tom stared at me, his face a mix of hurt and suspicion, I realized I was out of time.
"What did you know?"
What was the person behind those messages about to do? Tom's words hit like a punch I'd been bracing for. "We need to talk." I stood in the kitchen, my phone burning in my pocket with that unread message from another unknown number, my heart hammering so loud I thought he'd hear it. His face was drawn, not angry, but something worse, resigned, like he'd been carrying a weight as heavy as mine. I wanted to run, to hide, but there was nowhere left to go. The lies, the secrets, the fear they'd caught up, and now I was standing in the wreckage, waiting for it to collapse. "Okay," I said, my voice barely audible. "Let's talk." He gestured to the living room, and we sat on opposite ends of the couch, the space between us a lifetime of promises I'd broken. He didn't look at me, just stared at his hands, his wedding ring glinting in the lamplight. "I've been trying to ignore it, Claire," he said, his voice low, "but I can't anymore. You're not here. Not really. You're distant, you're lying, and I don't know why." My throat tightened, guilt and panic twisting together. I opened my mouth to deny it, but he held up a hand. "Don't," he said. "I know you weren't with Sarah last night, and I found something today in the closet. Scarf. Red. It's not yours, is it?" My stomach dropped, the air leaving my lungs. Was the scarf the one from the mystery package, the one I'd hidden like a guilty secret? I'd forgotten to move it, to throw it out, and now it was here, unraveling everything. "It was a gift," I said, my voice shaking from a client. I didn't think it was a big deal, but the lie tasted bitter, and Tom's eyes narrowed, like he could see right through it. "A client," he repeated, his tone flat. "You're getting expensive gifts from clients now, and you don't tell me?" He wasn't yelling, but every word cut deeper, because he was right to doubt me, and I hated myself for it. "I'm sorry," I said, tears burning my eyes. "I should have told you. It's just, work's been stressful, and I didn't want to worry you." It was a half-truth, a desperate attempt to steer him away from James. From the messages, from the truth I wasn't ready to face. He looked at me, his expression softening just a fraction, but there was still a wall between us, one I'd built brick by brick. "I want to believe you," he said, "but I need you to be honest with me, Claire. Whatever's going on, we can fix it. Just tell me." His voice broke on the last word, and it nearly broke me too, because he was offering me a lifeline, and I was too scared to take it. I nodded, promised I'd try, but my phone buzzed again, insistent, and I flinched. Tom noticed, his eyes flicking to my pocket. "You gonna check that?" he asked, his tone sharp now. I shook my head, said it was probably work, but my hands were trembling as I pulled it out, unable to resist. "Another unknown number? Time's up, Claire." My breath stopped, my vision blurring, and Tom leaned forward, his voice tight. "What is it? Who's texting you?" I locked the phone, shoved it back in my pocket, but my face must have given me away because he stood, his hands clenched. "Damn it, Claire," he said. "Talk to me." Couldn't, not yet. I mumbled something about needing air and bolted for the front door, my chest heaving. I stepped onto the porch, the night air cold against my skin, and stood there, trying to breathe, trying to think. The street was quiet, the neighbors' lights glowing, but I felt exposed, like eyes were on me from every shadow. I checked my phone again, my hands shaking. Another message, same number. "Look behind you." Spun around, my heart in my throat. But the porch was empty, the house dark except for the living room light. Was it a trick? A game? Or was someone really there waiting for me to slip? I went back inside, locking the door behind me, but Tom was gone from the living room. I heard him upstairs, the floor creaking, and my stomach twisted. Had he seen the messages? Was he checking my phone, my emails, looking for proof of what he already suspected? I wanted to go to him, to confess everything, James. The bar, the fear, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, I texted James, my fingers clumsy. "I can't do this anymore. It's over. Please don't contact me." I hit send, tears streaming down my face, and it felt like cutting off a piece of myself, but also like a weight lifting, just a little. We didn't reply, not right away, and I sat there, alone in the dark, waiting for something. Tom's footsteps. Another message, the sound of my life falling apart. When my phone buzzed again, I almost didn't look, but I couldn't stop myself. It wasn't James or the unknown number, but Sarah. "I'm sorry, Claire." I had to tell him. My heart stopped, the world tilting. "Tell who, Tom? About James? Or was it someone else, someone tied to the messages, the scarf, the car?" I called her, my hands shaking, but it went to voicemail. I tried again, then texted, "What did you do? Who did you tell?" No response. Tom came downstairs, his face pale, a piece of paper in his hand. "I found this," he said, his voice barely audible. "In your desk." It was a note, handwritten, tucked in an envelope I didn't recognize. Asterisk, "You're not as invisible as you think." My blood ran cold, because I'd never seen it before, never hidden it. Someone had been in our house, had planted it, and now Tom was holding it, his eyes searching mine for answers I didn't have. "Who's doing this, Claire?" he asked, his voice breaking. "And why?" I shook my head, tears falling, because I didn't know, but I knew it was my fault, all of it. And as we stood there, the phone buzzed again, another unknown number, and I knew with sick certainty that whoever was behind this wasn't done. What had Sarah done? What was coming next? I stood there, staring at the note in Tom's hand. Not as invisible as you think, my world shrinking to the size of those words. The paper trembled in his grip, and his eyes, raw with hurt and confusion, begged for an explanation I couldn't give. My phone buzzed again, another unknown number, but I didn't look, couldn't bear another cryptic threat. Sarah's text, "I'm sorry, Claire," I had to tell him, was a knife in my gut, twisting with every unanswered question. Had she told Tom about James? Or was it someone else? Someone tied to the messages, the scarf, the car that seemed to haunt my every move? I was drowning, and the life I'd built was slipping through my fingers. Tom set the note on the coffee table, his movements slow, like he was afraid of breaking something. "Claire," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "What's happening? Who's sending these?" I opened my mouth, but my throat was tight, the truth tangled with lies I'd told myself. "I don't know," I said, tears spilling over. "I swear, Tom, I don't know." It was true, and why I didn't know who was behind the messages, the note, the scarf. But I knew why they were coming, why my life was unraveling. James, the coffee shop, the bar. The desire I'd let grow, thinking I could control it. He sat down, his head in his hands, and the silence was worse than any argument. I wanted to tell him everything, James, the temptation, the fear, but the words felt like glass, sharp and impossible to swallow. Instead, I sat beside him, my hands shaking, and reached for his. "I'm sorry," I whispered. "I've been lost. I haven't been honest." His head snapped up, his eyes searching mine, and I saw the moment he braced himself, like he knew what was coming. "Just say it," he said, his voice cracking. "Are you having an affair?" The word hung there, heavy and final. I shook my head because it wasn't that simple, but I couldn't lie anymore. "There's someone," I said, my voice breaking, "an old friend. We met up a few times, nothing happened, not really, but I wanted it to." The confession was a weight lifting and a new one settling, because saying it out loud made it real. Tom's face crumpled, not with anger, but with something worse, betrayal, raw and deep. He pulled his hand away, stood, and walked to the window, his back to me. I sat there, tears streaming, waiting for him to yell, to leave, to do something, but he just stood there, silent. My phone buzzed again, insistent, and I grabbed it, desperate for a distraction. Another unknown number. "You can't hide anymore." I dropped the phone, my breath hitching, and Tom turned, his eyes narrowing. "What is it?" he demanded. I handed it to him, my hands trembling, and watched as he read the message, then scrolled up, seeing the other stimes up. "Claire, look behind you." His face hardened, and he looked at me. Not like a husband, but like a stranger. "Someone's stalking you," he said, his voice tight. "And it's connected to this. This friend, isn't it?" Nodded, unable to speak, because he was right, and I'd known it all along. He grabbed his keys, said he was going to the police, that this had gone too far. I begged him to wait to let me explain, but he shook his head. "I need space, Claire," he said. "I can't do this right now." He left the door slamming behind him, and I sank to the floor, sobbing, the house echoing with my failure. I didn't know if he was coming back, didn't know if we could fix this. But I knew I had to face the person behind the messages, to end this before it destroyed what was left of my life. I called Sarah again, my hands shaking, and this time she answered, her voice tense. "Claire, I'm so sorry," she said. "Before I could speak, I didn't mean to. I told Mark. He saw you at the bar, asked me who you were with, and I told him it was an old colleague. I didn't think he'd do anything." My blood ran cold. Mark. Tom's coworker, the one with the creepy stare, the one I'd suspected but dismissed. "What did he do?" I asked, my voice sharp. Sarah hesitated, then said, "He's been weird, Claire, asking about you, digging into your life. I think he's obsessed." I hung up, my mind racing. Mark, the scarf, the messages, the carrot, all pointed to him, a man I barely knew, but who'd been watching me, waiting. I texted James, my fingers clumsy, telling him it was Mark, that I was scared. He replied instantly, said he was coming over, that I shouldn't be alone. But before I could respond, the doorbell rang, sharp and sudden. I froze, my heart in my throat, and crept to the window. No car in the driveway, no one on the porch, but a small envelope sat on the doormat, my name scrawled in that same black marker. I opened the door, grabbed it, and tore it open. A photo, grainy but clear me, and James at the bar, his hand on mine, our faces close. On the back, in sharp letters, "Choose." I stood there, the photo trembling in my hands, as James's car pulled up. He got out, his face pale, and saw the envelope, the photo. "Claire," he said, his voice urgent, "we need to go to the police." No, but I couldn't move, couldn't think. Tom was gone, maybe for good. Sarah had betrayed me, even if she didn't mean to. And Mark, this shadow in my life, was closing in, his obsession a noose I'd helped tighten. I looked at James, at the photo, at the life I'd risked everything for. Had I chosen this? Had I chosen him? Or was it too late to choose anything at all? I don't know what I'll do next. Part of me wants to fight, to find Mark, to make him pay for the fear, the chaos. Part of me wants to beg Tom for forgiveness, to rebuild what I broke, if that's even possible. And part of me still feels that pull to James, that dangerous spark, even now. I don't know if I'm the victim or the villain, if love justifies betrayal, or if desire is just a lie we tell ourselves. All I know is I'm standing at the edge, and the choice I make will define me maybe forever. What would you do? What's worth fighting for, and what's worth letting go?